Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prospero.Ai stock market live streams. We have an exciting stream today, followed by a big event after market close, NVIDIA earnings. I'm sure everybody's excited to hear how George is feeling about that. Before we get into our topics, be sure to like the video, share with people that you think might enjoy it. And without further ado, I'll get into the topics for today that we have on deck. So obviously, we'll start off with what everybody probably wants to hear, our NVIDIA earnings preview. Seems like maybe the market's getting a little bit nervous before it's released as we're kind of drifting lower throughout the day. But we'll dive into that for sure. And then we have some more AI stories to cover. Amazon making some updates on their Amazon Alexa. I'll fill you in on all of those and what it means for Amazon stock. Then we have OpenAI with a concerning story, I'd say. They have a situation currently going on with an actress. You may know her, Scarlett Johansson, with their new voice for their ChatGPT 4.0. It seems like they may have cloned her voice. So we'll talk about that. Maybe one of the more scary AI developments that we've had in current memory. And then we have some more topics. Right, we're going to go right into Nestle and a new product line that they're starting based off the GLP-1 weight loss drugs, which if you viewed our streams for a while, you've probably seen us talk about Eli Lilly and how much we like their stock, primarily based off the line of drugs that they have to help people with weight loss. And it's very interesting that now we have food companies reacting to the drug companies and people's diets. And then we will end the stream today with a few topics that might be showing signs that the market's inflation fears are going to be going away very soon. And it's going to turn its focus to companies not being able to grow, recessionary concerns, and more problems relating to all of that. So we have Target down today after disappointing earnings. I'll tell you why they missed, what their plan is for correcting it. Then we have a poll from Guardian and Harris about U.S. Consumers and how they feel about the current state of the economy. I'll let you know what the result of that poll is. And also a statistic about the average vehicle age in the United States. It may be older than you think, and maybe there's an opportunity to invest in an area based on the average age of vehicles in the United States. But without further ado, I believe I will welcome George into the stream here. Let's see if I can pull him up. Yep, there he is. So George, we have the market selling off, not ferociously, but a little drift lower, definitely throughout the day today. Obviously, we have a huge event after the market closes today with NVIDIA earnings. Maybe the market's kind of getting a bit nervous about that, or maybe people just want to lock in some profits as we're sitting right near all-time highs before that happens. Let's do a deep dive on NVIDIA and just give all of our viewers here a little update on how you're feeling heading into it.
And the weird market that we're in right now, the market seems to be nervous about everything that isn't Barnes and Noble stock. It's a real throwback. I mean, it's interesting. These meme stocks, they have like so many different flavors, like especially compared to like the last two that I've really been like looking at. You've got like Faraday Future, which is just like kind of bleeding edge technology. And then you have like the oldest technology that we know. Like, I mean, I think maybe the wheel is older than books, but it's pretty competitive in terms of the oldest thing we've got around. But yeah, that's a nice joke to start off. But it's definitely a very apprehensive day, and we wrote a trading newsletter about this. We see the market and everybody talking about it. Like, I've actually seen few stories like this in all my years covering the market on a single stock. Like, yeah, there's events, there's CPI, there's like macro events that are like this, but I don't think I've ever seen like such hype, and I think merited hype around a single company's earnings, in terms of the fact that like everybody knows the market is going to move off of it. And like, I'm even looking at weird data coming into this call. SMCI is down about, a little over 3%, yet I'm seeing net option sentiment go up, which is just like, there's part of me that is just saying like, well, are people making bets around just like them thinking this is the best discount SMCI is going to be at, and they're not sure? Are they making bets just because they do know something, they do expect a beat, they do expect good news? Are they making bets because they'd like to play the bull case, but they're too scared to play Nvidia, which is probably what I'm going to do, especially with net option sentiment on SMCI going up? But like, honestly, the flip side of that is I'm just not super sure that SMCI doesn't go up down just as much or more than Nvidia on earnings. So it's not the best like alternative pick, because I have seen that on one Nvidia earnings, I can't remember, like SMCI actually moving, I believe, up. I think it was 2 earnings ago, it moved up more than Nvidia moved up. So I don't know if I have the guts to do that. I mean, I have a general policy of going with the Prospero signals. So that move up in SMCI might tie my hands. But not only is this like the biggest event I've seen, it also is like one of the hardest to play, right? Because unlike a macro event that you can odds make a little bit more, like forecasting chips in an AI boom and saying like, especially guidance, which we emphasize in our letter, like the guidance is what's going to matter. So one thing that, if you didn't read my letter this past Sunday, the one thing that I absolutely need to emphasize is don't see earnings reported and see like double beat and go all in. Because even the last quarter where they posted a 231% beat, which is like pretty much the best quarter I've ever seen, they still went down because Wong gave some concerning guidance around China. So don't go all in. But yeah, it's just like, it's a huge event. It's a binary event. And then not only is a binary event, you throw in like an incredibly difficult thing to forecast, which is like, is the booming AI market going to keep booming at the rate that it is? And or is there some wiggle room in terms of like how guidance is given? Because I think that's pretty much at the CEO's discretion or the executive team's discretion, if they want to overemphasize risks, or they want to just like play basically the logical bull case for the business, because they kind of want to keep building the stock and they think they're reasonably certain around that happening. So it's super tough. AI is driving the market, but like, that's just the thing that makes it so hard to play. Because one thing I'm fairly certain of as well is there's going to be an outsized reaction to whatever happens. So like, the penalty for being wrong is extreme. And that is always a challenge for me, because generally I like to avoid big penalties. But it's going to be a very challenging event. I'm still waffling on, even if I'm going to do SMCI, like I might do like Broadcom, like at the very least, I think I'll do Broadcom or ASML or anything like that, just to get some of the upside that's going to be, drifting off of Nvidia. But it's just like, I don't envy anyone that's going to have to make this decision. It's a tough one. I'm struggling, obviously.
So everybody who's watching right now is going to have to stick around for when we do the model portfolio at the end of the stream, and you'll get the final decision. But just to give people a little bit of numbers before we move on from this subject, the market is expecting Nvidia to grow 200% again, which would be the fourth quarter in a row. So a full year of their business doing that, absolutely insane. EPS at $5.59 and revenue of 24 billion and 24.65 billion. So I know you think the guidance is more important, but we'll just share those numbers for people to look out for later today. And you also said that some companies kind of give a little bit of a sandbagged guidance where maybe they'll set that expectation low and be able to beat it. I'm not sure if Nvidia is known for that. I think Apple is notoriously a company that does that. Do you think that's smart of companies to do, or does the market kind of catch on to that and then it doesn't even have the effect anymore?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the market makes their own forecasts, right? So even if you're conservative, the market is going to, it understands the assumptions. The market is pretty good at making their own. And it doesn't necessarily like, it's obvious if they keep guiding above where you're guiding that you're sandbagging. And I think generally, like, Wall Street appreciates transparency and they appreciate you being, for lack of a better term, on top of your shit. So if it's perceived that you're either like not being like you're sandbagging, you're being intentionally transparent, like intentionally non-transparent, or you're just not on top of your shit, like neither of those is very good for you. So it's one of those things that absolutely people decide for a quarter here and there to play it conservatively. That's just like a day in the life of a CEO, because the last thing you want is a big miss on an event. That's the last thing that's like, especially for a company like Nvidia that depends so much on momentum. You have a big risk of the bottom falling out and you doing much worse off than if you just like guide down a little accurately now versus like have to miss by a lot later. Or like, sometimes what people do is they'll put guidance and then they'll lower it in increments. But even then you run the risk of like, being perceived as not being on top of your shit. Which by the way, like Jensen Huang would have to like really move a lot from, he's like, he Wall Street loves him. So like it would be a long time between where he is now and the perception that he's not on top of his shit. But, everybody starts there at some point. Everybody, you have a reputation. Sometimes your reputations change. You have to manage your reputation. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see both what happens and also like, that's what I'm saying, like the potential overreaction. Like I could easily see them like beating by like 1% on revenue and profit and then like guiding up 2% and the stock to move like 15% up. I could like easily see that being a scenario, just because like there's like a term called like dry powder. And that's just like cash you have on hand. And I'm sure there's plenty of dry powder waiting to play this. And like that's where like we always talk about this, machines have an advantage, right? Because like when you can jump order flow and when you can like have robots execute your trades, like they are just like, there's live sentiment analysis running on this, running their models, reprojecting, making bets, which is why it's like very dangerous to play. Even if you see like a big green candle up, you never know if it's going the opposite way very soon. So it's going to be interesting. But I think that, I mean, if you twisted my arm, I'm expecting positive movement up, but the downside risk is just too great.
Exciting stuff. I can't wait to see it later today. We're going to stay on the topic of robots because we have a few more AI stories to cover. So we have Amazon Alexa getting an AI overhaul, and they are also planning on launching a monthly subscription fee for the Alexa service once it gets all of the new features. And I found it interesting that they're planning on having this outside of the Prime sub fee. I feel like they try to maximize that ecosystem as much as possible. So I don't know if there's anything to read into that, that they're not launching it within that fee or and just raising that slightly. But also, I thought about, they just made that big investment in Anthropic. So if they're going to use Anthropic's tech in this and they knew they were going to make this announcement, that's kind of like, I don't know, I mean, a win-win for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that. I think the first thing is like Amazon's great at monetization, and they're already doing this like ad stuff on like Prime. Like I have a Fire Stick, and it's like so annoying that like now like you just like turn on your TV and it's like running an ad. And it's just like, man, I remember when TVs just did what you told them to. Longing for those old days there. But they're like the most clever monetization company that I know. Like they're so good at building a product that people like and then just like adding to it, maximizing the monetization. They're very thoughtful, they're very data driven. But it's so interesting. I mean, I feel like they really would have to blow you away with the features to have you pay for them. And to apply a bit of circular logic, I don't think they would do this if they didn't have a reasonable expectation that they were going to blow people away with the features. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see it play out. Like I actually had a first generation Alexa and I turned it off because I didn't like that it was always like turning on when I wasn't even talking to it. So I can't imagine paying for any of this because like the big thing for me is like other than doing something like setting a timer, which like I can ask Siri to do, um, I don't really know like what else I really need it for. Like sometimes I have a Google Home too that basically I use to turn on and off the lights. That's like great. But like I would use an app for that if it wasn't like very convenient. But I just have a hard time like picturing a feature that I would really want to pay for. Um, and I'm pretty forward thinking on tech, and I generally like to use new tech. So I'm very interested to see what their plans are on that front and like what kinds of things they're gonna like, blow people away with. Uh, but we're in a growth phase of AI, and a lot of these companies are spending a lot on AI. And what happens when you spend a lot on AI? Well, it's got to go somewhere. They've got to demonstrate a return. So it's going to be super interesting. And on that note, it's going to be interesting if they might have some speculation on what's going on with like GPT, Gemini, like the competitors there, because like them charging for basically like LLMs, like when other people were still having them for free, is dumb, beyond dumb. But if they have some kind of inside knowledge, or they're like all talking internally and being like, oh, we do want to charge for this at X point in the future, which companies are not beyond doing, that would make sense to me. But it's it's a little weird that they go on a limb and be the first to announce it. All of it's like there's something that doesn't quite add up, but that could mean other are going to start charging. That could mean they have some ideas for features that are going to like blow people away. But yeah, like one thing that like as I'm thinking about this, that would be a cool feature is if they were like looking at your orders and asking you if you wanted to reorder something. Like, but again, that could be done in an app. And do you really want to charge for that feature? Like, versus just making it as accessible as possible. So that's what I really don't know, but it's going to be interesting to watch it play out.
So you brought up ChatGPT, and we have a pretty crazy story about their rollout of ChatGPT 4.0, OpenAI, the company. They reached out to Scarlett Johansson to voice their LLM, and she denied them and turned them down. And then the product rolls out, and she's getting calls, texts from her friends and family like, "Did you voice their product? It sounds just like you." and she actually, I don't know if she officially sued them or just like she put out a statement for sure where she was very concerned about what was happening, and they actually took down the voice product and had to kind of go back on what they had done. It's kind of a scary turn of events because OpenAI is kind of, I think they're thought of as like the leader of like using AI the right way and having like, you know, uh, building out everything so in thought of like humanity, and this does not seem like they had that in mind. Just cloning her voice and using it regardless of what she said. And just the final thing I'll say is like I think it's pretty clear that that's what they did because Sam Altman tweeted her, which was Scarlett Johansson's movie of her as an AI like in the movie. So, I mean, what do you think about that whole mess, George, that's going on with there right now?
I mean, it's I think one of the things that people don't talk about enough when it comes to AI are deep fakes. And I think that's going to be like a really complex part of our future, especially if you like think about politics and how divisive it is. Like I don't think we're that far away from like political deep fakes, like delivering like the sound bites of your opponents that you want. And like the thing is, the sad part is like I don't even know who will do it. I don't know if it's like the political parties against each other or like China and Russia just trying to foment discontent, as it was called in like a game I forgot what game it was, but it was like about like spying. It was like foment discontent, and it was always like Russia or China trying to like do that. So um, that's been happening for a while. And again, it's just like the legislation on this is so new and it'll be interesting. I mean, I definitely think like it's only a matter of time like before like using what is essentially someone's voice without their consent will at least get like some legitimate challenges. However, like you have to remember where we are as a country with legislation and like and lobbying, and it's kind of something that we've seen time and time again in this country where it's just like, well, the old golden rule, whoever has the gold makes the rules. So like on one hand, I'm just like, I see it and I'm just like, I don't know how this is not going to be challenged legally. Like that's such an infringement on someone's like rights that they could like have basically what is very obviously their voice used. In a way that they're not consenting to. But like the other side to it is like, do I really think the government is gonna like basically allow a shot across the bow of like some big donors? Like, pretty much you name like the like biggest companies like by market cap would be affected by this. Like Google, Microsoft, Apple, probably Meta. Like it's just like the who's who of companies that want like kind of like uh unbound AI. Tesla. Like so you have everyone. The one other thing I'm gonna say that I think is very interesting about this stuff is like I saw a startup that was pitching that was like AI companions that like had these different things. I believe it was getting people's like that like celebrities, people they know consent to just like talk to them, have conversations. But the thing that I found like was like very dark is like apparently they were going in a direction of like erotic conversations. And that's one where you're just like, oh man, just in case we thought there was like enough like weirdness in the world already, like it does appear that we're going to a place where like people will be like, oh yeah, my girlfriend, Scarlett Johansson. Like, and they're like talking to someone, like probably having like fake generated pictures of them that they're sending, like, probably even pictures of them together, like because you could do that as well. So like yeah, we're entering a brave new world on that stuff. And I mean, I think ultimately, like as much as I'm like, I don't see how like we could allow this kind of stuff to keep going. Like every rule that I know about America is that generally company like if enough money wants to keep going, it happens.
Yeah, that's a scary picture you paint of the future. Hopefully, I mean, I think we'll probably end up there, but who knows? spinning to our next story of the day, it's kind of in relation to a company we talk about pretty often on the stream, Eli Lilly. It's been a favorite of the signals for a while. They have the weight loss drugs that are very hot right now. I thought this was really interesting because it's the first time I've seen a food company react because of the new, things they're seeing within the diets of consumers. So Nestle is launching a frozen food brand called Vital Pursuit, specifically targeted at people who are using the GLP-1 weight loss drugs. It's not going to have any like language on the packaging like that, but they said they're going to market it that way, so it's going to be pretty obvious, and it's going to contain nutrients and macros that those people need to stay healthy while on the drugs. Uh, that's a pretty interesting step we're seeing, right? I mean, they were talking about how tens of millions of people are on this drug already, and they expect it to grow to I think 30 million by 2035. I saw. Uh, so if people were thinking this is just a fad, it doesn't seem like it.
I mean, I actually heard recently, I didn't really know how it worked. And like apparently like not only does it suppress your appetite, like apparently it like suppresses your desires to do like do anything, which is just like any cravings, which is just a really weird way to like opt into living. I mean, maybe it's like kind of like a Buddhism pill, like where you're just like, oh, all of my attachments are no longer here. Where it's just like, I don't know, maybe like that would be interesting. I would wonder, I'd love to try to get like a Buddhist opinion on it because maybe they're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to Western society. You needed a way to like let go of these attachments. I think we gotta find a way to get a quote. Um, but I think that's really I have an interesting person to ask. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of like a concerning societal trend that instead of being like, oh, like maybe this isn't the best thing for everyone to be on, there's like other things that like there's other like an ecosystem developing around it. It's like, oh yeah, here are your nutrients. For when you don't want to eat anything, you can just like get the job done. Um, but yeah, I think that I mean, obviously great for Eli Lilly. One of the reasons we liked it. I actually saw Eli Lilly is ninth in market cap. I knew we love it, and it was like a mega cap. I didn't know that it was that big to think of it as. But yeah, a lot of people are bullish on it. One of the many things that they're doing to grow. But yeah, I just think that it's a very it's it's another like dark futuristic like you put these last two stories together, it's like it's only a matter of time before we're just like in our homes all day like talking to our fake celebrity partners, like not eating anything and then just like eating like having like sustenance supplements. It's like I feel like that's kind of how they talk about the future sometimes. Like in some shows, I feel like everybody's wearing the same thing and like taking their nutrient supplement. Um, nobody have I've really seen talking about like fake celebrity like significant others. But maybe they just don't want to go that dark. It does seem like this is the place we're heading, and I wonder if like people that like are just like, well, is this really what we want to be doing? If they're going to be like Luddites, like if people are just going to be like, oh, you hate the future, because I think I might be one of those people, and I never like it's going to be weird because I've called people Luddites many times in my youth, and to have that turned around on me is going to be interesting.
Well, I had never heard that term before, but I think I might be there with you. And I think you'd be surprised at how many of the younger generation like don't go for the weight loss drugs and that kind of picture we're painting, a very Wally future that we could be headed for.
Yeah.
But I'm optimistic. I don't think we'll get there. People will choose better options, and all this tech probably will be used for good in the end.
Yes, I will tell you and anybody that doesn't know in the audience, the Luddites are a great story. So, Luddites were these people in like the early 1800s in England who tried to like conduct like a counter revolution against the Industrial Revolution. And they literally just like went around breaking machines. Now it's been like talked about as like a term that's like more of a joke because I think it only lasted like 5 years. But it's definitely turned into a joke that everybody that doesn't like And I've actually, the people I've called Luddites have like previously Googled it and be like, that's stupid. Like I'm nothing like them. But it's just like, well, it doesn't sound like you like it's the people that I call Luddites are generally people that don't believe in AI, don't believe in analytics. Like humans are better, they can solve things better. And I'm just like, yeah, you just want to break machines, it sounds like. I bet you could. You sound like someone who, if they could do it with no consequences, would like break these machines that you feel are coming for your job, which it's almost always related to. It's always like, nobody can do what I can do. It's just like, you don't sound pretty secure about that.
So on Monday, I brought up small cap stocks, and you kind of talked about like why would anybody be interested in them when you have Nvidia growing so much, so profitable, and the tech that they have. I feel like maybe Target is under the same kind of pressure. They had earnings that were, they were poor, but the stock is down today. An interesting thing that they shared in their release was that they're cutting prices on thousands of items. So, if you're someone who's still worried about inflation, that's a good data point for you. I know you've been bearish on retail for a long time now. Um, at any point, do you see it, hitting a bottom and becoming attractive, or is it way too early to get that kind of an opinion right now?
I mean, it's always that. I mean, because especially part of this is there's always people in the know about things like rates, right? And if you have some inside track to know that, we're going to get rate cuts, that, things like, job loss aren't going to be that bad. There might be some legislation or some other solution coming to like relieve the credit pressure. Like, hey, you can see, like, you can definitely, see consumer discretionary as a value, even right now, right? But if you don't have that information, where I'm sitting, I don't have any kind of like conviction on any of those things. Like, especially like I've heard people that I would consider very smart, who've told me that like consumer credit's not going to be a problem because if it happens, especially before the election, if we start to have stress, that there's going to be some kind of structural solution. And even if it's after the election, like the last thing a new president wants is like going to be a disaster with consumer spending, which is just like such a silly time in politics where it's like you're not even like the idea that you're not even going to like make people face the consequences of their actions because they might not like you. America, everybody, that's how we've like built up debt, like so much, like being afraid of people not liking you enough to want to manipulate their feelings, but not enough to actually pass legislation that actually helps them in a tangible long-term way. uh, is a just a really interesting time in late stage capitalism. But I'm bearish on it just because, and the reason that I am bearish on it is a very logical reason. I like to think about things in risk management, right? And I think if you're ultimately long tech, which we have been all year, we pare it down here and there. Sometimes we go more neutral, long, short, to manage that risk. But if you're bullish tech, which we are and have been, then you're just like, okay, what is the bear case for tech? Well, the bear case for tech is uh, interest rate cuts being late, or inflation staying persistent, in which case we wonder if we might even get a raise again. That's the worst case for tech, right? And what's going to suffer alongside that if that happens? Well, consumer spending, right? If there's actual economic difficulties, like part of what people are talking about are um, are basically like spending being a problem because of economic difficulties. But if they're broader economic difficulties, I'm not sure that there'll be a bailout to, individuals when, we all know that corporations that might need a bailout are always kind of first in line. So that's how I view the risk management. Like, if I'm going to be long tech, I want to be somewhat short consumer discretionary because that's the bear case in my mind. And if I look at it on a macro level, the only other thing that I'd want to be long is defense. The other thing is like war escalations that could hurt tech. So, basically, if I'm going to do a full risk management, long-term portfolio for anyone to think about it, I would be probably long tech, long defense, short consumer discretionary.
And so the worst case scenario of like inflation staying very hot, where the Fed would need to even raise rates again, possibly. Um, I, in my mind, and obviously this is my opinion, but I don't see that happening. I feel like I definitely feel the pulse of the market and the tide shifting, where people are becoming less concerned about inflation and more concerned about recession and slow growth. And you could say if you disagree and whatnot, but it's stories like the following. We have two more stories to talk about today that make me say that to begin with. So there was a Guardian Harris poll where 56% of respondents said that they believe the U.S. was already in recession. People, polled in the United States. Um, and I think we could actually just cover both stories right now. Another one that I was going to bring up: the average age of a U.S. vehicle hit all-time high that are driving on roads right now at 12.6 years. So people are holding onto their cars longer, not upgrading their vehicles. So you hear stories like that, and it really, I feel like the underlying weakness of the market is kind of starting to show itself, or the economy, I should say. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, delinquencies, as much as like the total amount, delinquencies are starting to rise. We're seeing sign of strain, but like that's why that's one of the reasons we're long tech, because I definitely think the bear case is the bear case. But one of the things that's interesting is like I actually think that we could see, job loss, consumer spending problems, and the market go up overall because tech AI carries it. Because I do believe like part of those layoffs will be automation. Um, so I think that kind of goes hand in hand. Um, and I think that, yeah, we're definitely seeing signs of strain. And the only question is like, is it enough to carry things down? Like, if the strain actually happens, is the strain actually going to result in any kind of like big noticeable impact on consumer spending? Because we're already seeing some, but the question is like how much, how severe, and then is there going to be some kind of like bailout to stabilize things, especially if it happens more in the short term? There's a lot of unknowns, but I think that like high level trade that I just laid out is a good way to think about how to insulate yourself from the risks and still get tech AI upside.
And I think you're right when you mention, the election coming up, and a lot of this stuff is probably going to be pushed off until after that occurs. So maybe it's more of a 2025 type story. This is Before we do our switch over. I think this is interesting because I looked at it in Prospero before we started, and we had that old vehicle story. So maybe if you pull up AutoZone in Prospero, the chart looked very interesting to me. Its upside and downside breakout weren't the best, but the time series graph for net option sentiment looks pretty good from what I've seen in Prospero so far. But maybe you could share your thoughts on how that looks within that. Also, like thinking about that story that I just said.
Yeah, I mean, it might become a value or it might go on a short-term run, but the problem is it's like, yeah, like 37 upside, 64 downside. And I've actually seen that be like, I think as high as like 70 upside and like, 30 downside. I believe I've seen it at a time. So it's on a bad trend. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I can't like the problem is like this net option sentiment, there could be an event around it. Like I do see, especially with price heading down, it could be a value now, but like it's so hard to play those short-term events. Like that's one of the reason in our app we have like for the long-term bulls, sorry, for the short-term bulls, we actually it's net option sentiment plus short pressure, but we require upside breakout to be greater than downside and the reverse for bears, and it's just a risk control measure. Like it very well, all of those bets could be there because they're confident that there's an event around AutoZone, but it doesn't quite jive for me that in the long term there's greater bets against than for. And the other problem with it, and it's the same thing with meme stocks. The problem with these short-term events is even if like we are right and it's it's around an event or whatever, like it still becomes, because it's not a stock that there's positive long-term bets on, you never know when the bottom's going to fall out of it, and that makes it really challenging to figure it out, because you have to watch it more closely. And like what I always say is like, I can find stocks that have better long-term signals and also good net option sentiment. I don't need to be crawling around in the long-term signal gutter just because something's got good net option sentiment.
And that's a great point. How you have to use all the signals together to form a real clear picture. But the time has come, George. You're going to have to make up your mind on what you're going to do with the model portfolio. Ready to switch over, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
All right. See you over there. Just you and me chat for now. I see we have had over 1,300 people in the stream today. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody that joined up. If it's your first time, because we probably have some new people with that many people tuning in, what we're going to do now is George is going to join us in his laboratory, and he's going to actually make changes to the model portfolio that Prospero has, and you'll get to see what stocks he adds and drops based off the signals and what he's seeing today, and he'll talk you through it. I'll give everybody in here a market update before he joins back in. It looks like when we started the stream, the market was kind of declining throughout the day, but it seems to have caught a little bit of footing, kind of recovering a bit. The QQQ is down 0.21%, SPY is down 0.39%, Dow Jones down 0.5%. But let's see how they look in Prospero. Starting off with the QQQ. We'll take a look-see. Net option sentiment is at 46, after being at 43 at lunch. So good to see there. It's still holding in the upper 40s. And the SPY is at 43 after being at 42 at lunch. So a little bit lower than QQQ, but both looking pretty decent as of now, I would say.
Yeah. So I wanted to confirm, and I can start sharing my screen, what I believe I want to do for this. And I've been shedding my tech names a little bit. I'll check in on those. But what I believe I'm going to do is I'm going to take on some more tech shorts, larger cap tech shorts, as well as non-semi tech longs. So that's my very specific plan for heading into this event, because we have semi exposure. We might divest some. We're definitely going to close. Actually, while I'm doing this, can you take a look at like Broadcom, ASML, TSM, and LRCX? Let me know what's going on with the net option sentiment on those.
Okay, so want me to just run through them for you?
Yep.
All right, so starting with Broadcom, it's at 81, and it was at 82 to open the day. ASML is at 69. It was at 72 to open the day. TSM looked the most bearish. It's at 60. It was at 61 to start. And LRCX is at 76, and it was at 76 at open.
What's the highest you said? Broadcom?
Broadcom is the highest at 81.
How about
AMD? It looks pretty good in the time series graph too, Broadcom. AMD is at Ooh, AMD's at 90. It opened the day at 92.
Where is SMCI? I'm still.
SMCI is at 86. Uptrending too recently in net options.
I know. I'm struggling here. It looks like the small cap run, like the run on them.
SMH, the semiconductor ETF, opened. Oh no, it was at 57 at lunch, and it's at 70 now. So that's going up.
Oh, I should check that more.
That's a new high too for their trend.
Oh God, more data against playing this conservatively. I don't know. It's really. Can you look up when the exact earnings is?
I'm not getting a time.
I'm getting an AMD. I mean, we pared down pretty hard yesterday. Oh, I forgot to close out the SMCI. All right. How about the shorts? I think I feel pretty good about where we are shorts wise. Can you tell me if LCII is a win? Actually, tell me if KSS is in a good, is in a positive. What kind of net option sentiment trend?
KSS is at 21 right now. Pretty neutral trend. It is hitting higher lows though.
It's pretty hot. I'm gonna get out of it. Things are a little too memey lately. I'm getting out of it. KMT. I like that. I like that. Oh, how about LCII?
LCII is at 54. It was at 7 at lunch. It's very volatile, just going up and down a lot throughout.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think I feel good about this. TDG. Oh, we're in KLAC. I like. Oh, what about KLAC? How's the trend there?
KLAC, the trend is slightly uptrending at 75 currently.
Slightly uptrending. Oh, we're really up on BST. Okay. Let's get this. We're running out of time. But I think I already decided what I'm going to do. Just not going to tell any of you until the end. You'll need the suspense. You're not able to look that up, Steven?
No, I've clicked on a bunch of different things and they're not giving me a time.
Ask what time is NVIDIA's conference call.
That's at 5.
Oh, then yeah, that's what I thought. They'll probably release the earnings right at market close.
Oh, because they don't give their guidance till the call usually, right?
Yeah. All right. So we want we're getting rid of this. All right, I think we decided we're going Broadcom. That's what we're using. Okay, all the main players. How's the trend on Apple?
Apple is at 71. Slight downtrend, lower lows, but it's at the midpoint of the trend right now, in the 70s.
Okay. It's NXPI. How's NXPI's net option sentiment trend? Oh, semiconductors.
NXPI looks good, uptrending. It's at 79 right now. It was at 83 before, but
I don't like
towards that high.
I think we're going to add another Broadcom. How about now? NOW.
Also at 73. That trend looks good too, though, uptrending.
I don't like the price trend. Ooh, SNPS. SNPS is a nice. Tell me the trend. SNPS is an interesting way to play NVIDIA.
SNPS is very, very stable. Slightly uptrending at 73 right now, but it only goes from 69 to 73. The whole trend.
We're doing that.
What about SoundHound, George?
All right, we're picking the Pelosi favorite here. Pan West. Another one. How about CrowdStrike? How's
CrowdStrike is at 66. It just dipped and it's recovering. Pretty neutral trend.
90 upside breakout though. All right, this is how we're playing it. How about FSLR?
FSLR, nice uptrend. It's only at 67 though, but good trend. It was at 40, low 40s about a week ago.
we're going to have to start moving very quickly. All right. That's interesting. How about what's the trend on keys? What about HC? Actually, HCP.
HCP is big downtrend at 27 right now.
All right. All right, we're not gonna. We don't have time. I don't think we have time. All right. We have time for maybe one more. Ooh. How's the trend on Wolf speed?
Wolf speed is upward trending at 55 right now.
How about DXC?
DXC is at 53, also slight uptrend.
How about VNT?
VNT is at 19, pretty volatile. Towards the lows of the trend though.
How about keys?
Keys is at 25, pretty neutral trend. Big spikes down though throughout it.
Shit, I gotta send an alert. Sorry, I gotta get out of NVIDIA.
Well, the moment we've all been waiting for is just about here. Probably 5 or 10 minutes. We'll know. Well, I guess we won't know till guidance, but we'll have an idea maybe.
Yep. Sorry, everyone. I gotta do the. I'm sticking in SMCI. Okay, that's done. All right, we made it at the buzzer.
All right, now all eyes turn to NVIDIA's report. And, we'll be back Monday for everybody. Best of luck to all of our viewers if you got any plays regarding or surrounding NVIDIA. Honestly, you can't have zero exposure. I mean, if you own any tech, it's probably going to react. But
you can't hide under a rock on this one.
Yeah. Especially, I think you shared in your letter, it's like 5% of the S&P or one of the indexes. It's just, or both of the indexes. It's crazy, but good luck, everybody. All eyes on NVIDIA.
I mean, we can see, like, we can hang out for a few more minutes. I might be like doing some phone stuff, but it might be helpful if we hang out, see what drops. I mean, for the actual guidance, I want to listen, but we can hang out for, if you want to, Stephen, we can hang out for a few more minutes and see what happens, see what drops.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see. Any questions while we're all here and waiting for some NVIDIA? Hi D. I don't know if you've come before, but welcome. Hello, big dog. I guess we're talking like that. NVIDIA is showing some green, but not like heavy candle green that you might expect. I mean, it really depends on the signals. I mean, I'm really going to depend on what it's looking like at open tomorrow on net option sentiment. I'll probably wait and just make sure it's strong before I like play anything too strongly. But boy, this is interesting. What would really suck is if I held SMCI and they had great earnings and SMCI didn't do well. That would be a real bummer. But both are looking green.
We do got a question from Joseph now. Would you be buying NVIDIA?
No, I said I answered it.
Oh, you did?
I said that like it depends on what it looks like in the metrics at open. And I mean, I probably want to see upside recover from where it's been too.
What if we get no movement and NVIDIA moves 0.5% up or down?
That would be the biggest surprise of all. But like, I guess if they just hit everything exactly, that's the possibility. Like revenue, profit, right at where they said, guidance stayed exactly where it is. Like that is a possibility. But all right, we're gonna give it a few more minutes to see. I'm also just going to check X because like X is like a lot of the times a good place for news to get dropped.
Possibly 4:05. I think a lot of companies do 5 minutes after the bell.
Yeah. Anything here? All right. Yeah.
You know what's something that's interesting? I'm not sure if Jensen Huang is passing any like Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos as one of the wealthiest in the world, but he's got to be up there now with the insane market cap of NVIDIA.
Oh yeah, you never really hear. That's a good thing when we're waiting. Richest people in the world. Well, let's say in America. Let's not confound it. Here we go. The richest people in America. Wow, look at Bloomberg. He's still 6. That terminal. That just keeps generating. It is actually interesting. You could look at it with the Waltons. If you added the Waltons, I think the 3 main ones, they would only Elon Musk would be richer. And if you added the Kochs, only Elon Musk would be richer. So, dividing up that wealth. But no, Ken Griffin and the Mars, as they're here, but, Jensen Huang doesn't even have $35 billion. Like, boy, is he
there's too early.
Yeah, let's see. Let's just Google. I mean, it's possible he just gave. Oh, that's interesting. It says his net worth is $83 billion. So what's going on?
Maybe that list is like 2023 or something.
Yeah. How do we find wealthiest billionaires in 2024? Okay, let's see if he's on here. Oh yeah, this is a more updated list. Here we go. Who are the Francois Betancourt Myers and family?
Sounds like a fashion family to me.
Yeah. Well, actually, that is interesting. I was talking about adding people together. If you added Sergey Brin and Larry Page, they're the richest person in the world. So, in a way, that kind of says Google's the most valuable to the founders, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Jensen Huang, 20 at 77 billion on, I guess, this more updated list. Yeah, this says, oh, this is a very comprehensive list here. Oh, this has their countries. Yeah, I'll post this. This is a well-constructed list. All right. We are going to give this 3 more minutes.
So what do you think a guy like Jensen Huang is motivated by when he's got $70 billion? That can't be his motivation anymore, right?
I mean, he seems to like those leather jackets. maybe he just is, those are his aspirations. Just like fancier and fancier leather jackets.
David shared in the chat, S&PS earnings fell slightly below estimates. I see S&PS is down 3.78%.
I just grabbed them.
Yeah.
Because I thought they'd be like a good asymmetric NVIDIA play. Oh, I almost added Snow. Oh, I know I'm going to be in a space tomorrow. I've been trashing Snow a little bit. Well, just that I'd rather own the blue chip. So if NVIDIA does better, I'll be proven right. Here we go. We wait. But we're only going to do 1 more minute. The NVIDIA drop.
Everybody drum roll at home. Get ready. It's so hot in
I wonder when S&PS. What is NVIDIA doing? These other companies have already dropped. They're just like, here, let's see.
They want to be the grand finale.
Yeah. I'm now wondering. I mean, I could get back in. I'm off.
Mauricio.
I want to see a final net option sentiment reading on SMCI. Finished at 86. Very high dark pool though. Where did NVIDIA finish the day? Probably at 100 net option sentiment. Yeah. Net social all over the place. Yeah. I mean, it's really keeping us in suspense here. What is in the audience while we're waiting? Does anyone want to? What's the next meme stock? Let's see. On Snow. Oh yeah. Yeah, very elevated in option sentiment. You're correct. But yeah, I guess it gets filtered down because it's lower profitability growth upside. Yeah, that's just what we were saying with net option sentiment there. NVIDIA. Yeah, but they'll release their earnings pre-call, and that'll give us something. I mean, it is helpful if we know that they've beaten on revenue and earnings. Like, you build your forecasts off your current numbers, right? So if they beat, it's not everything, but it's a good omen for the actual call and for the actual guidance, right? Because if your current business is more than you forecasted, it's likely that your later business is more than you forecasted well, with the caveat being that that especially what happened last time with Wong, we are not necessarily sure. We're not necessarily sure if he's going to like express concerns as he did last time. And like we're talking about, those concerns being expressed might be strategic on his part. He might be saying like, I don't want this over speculation, over enthusiasm, basically making it so we're going to later, if anything goes wrong, just get throttled on the downside and get shorted and have people sell. So yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that in particular. I know we said 412, but I really kind of wanted to do this live and get people's opinions. If there are more questions, that's great. I'm looking at some other stuff right now. SMCI is on. If we want an omen, if there is one, we are definitely seeing that SMCI is already moving higher than NVIDIA. Granted, it was down more for the day. But Zoom info did it report? No, just got a new buy rating. Barnes & Noble continues to be crazy in after hours. I shouldn't watch these meme stocks, but I'm so fascinated by them. All right. In 2 minutes, we're giving up earnings whisperer until 4:20. What do you think, Steven? Should we stay live? In the audience, do you want us to stay live until the earnings?
Yeah, let's get some comments. I didn't even know Barnes & Noble was still a stock.
I don't think it has the same ticker as it used to. It might have gone through bankruptcy or something. It's the new. It's so funny when the people that talk about meme stocks act like they're building real thesis. They're just like, we think it got hit too hard. It still got revenue. And it's just it's got revenue, but it's a zombie company. How long does any bookstore still have? But it's just it's so funny. It's just all over. If there's one thing that I will say, it's just all over the map in terms of what kind of companies, what kind of revenue producing business model. They don't discriminate. These meme stock people, anything could be a meme stock.
I definitely see a trend of I feel like they go after, investors who may be more impressionable. So say 25 to 35, companies that were in their glory days when people that age were kids. You see Barnes & Noble, Build-A-Bear, AMC, GME, all these companies that their glory days were the early 2000s era. Seems like they get the hype. I feel like there's a trend there.
That's part of the formula. When it's brands that people actually notice. Because it all started, I do give a lot of credit to the way that it started, which is that people got mad that this short seller was basically trying to drive GameStop into the ground. That was the major catalyst that got a lot more attention to it. So I do think there's something to that. But then you have other ones like MMAT, BBIG, which are just those are kind of one's deep tech and one turned into more crypto. And then obviously FFIE is one as well. So yeah, there's not a ton of rhyme or reason to it. I am interested in this after hours green on NVIDIA. I mean, it's not tons, but it is kind of interesting but it's not really going up enough that, that there's a leak, but you never know. Like, it is going up, and it's not going up like a zero amount. And if you look at overall, I do think I'm glad that I didn't play PDD today, because it beat and it still was only up 1.13%. So that's a good sign that you played the risk correctly. Yeah, QQQ is down and NVIDIA is up. So I wonder if someone's playing that.
Question from Mauricio: is there a level of profitability you don't like a stock below 50, say?
That's my biggest problem with Snow. Yeah, it's below average, but I mean, what we generally say is an investment is viable if it's, in my mind, if profitability plus growth is above 120. Because, like, a stock that's like only 30 profitability, that's 90 growth, like, there's potential there. So it is viable. You have to look at the surrounding signals. Like, if we want to talk about Snow specifically, like, my problem with it is, like, it's got profitability and growth, like, beyond that measure, but its upside is just not upside to downside ratio. I generally have a hard rule of upside has to be 20 points or more greater than downside for me to be interested on a long. That's kind of like a hard or fast rule. And then there's like where I really like things to be excited about something. And those rules are, I would like profitability and growth to be above 140. I would like upside to be 30 points higher than downside. And I would like net option sentiment to be, depending on the sector, greater than 70, but greater than 80 if it's like tech. Like, those are the rules that I generally follow for my high conviction newsletter picks. I like those, and you can kind of flip those numbers if you want the reverse. Although I'm a little less picky about profitability being higher on the downside. Like, I will take a stock that has a 60 or 70 profitability on the short side if growth is low. Like, if profitability plus growth is less than 100, I'm generally okay if I like the rest of the makeup. And then, but I definitely want to see downside at least 30 points greater than upside. You kind of flip that number. Net option sentiment, I prefer to be below 40, but I'm a little more flexible. Because profitable companies can become overvalued, but the reverse is not necessarily as true for my I prefer companies to be very profitable to feel safe in my longs. It's almost that time. How does Earnings Whisperer get this information, by the way? Do you think directly from the companies?
Yeah, along with the earnings. He's probably playing it before us all.
Yeah. It would be funny if the Whisper up. We got it. Oh, red candle. Here I go. I'm bailing on SMCI. Or not.
Yeah, it turned green.
Yeah. That was just was that like a stop loss hunt?
That was all the people getting out who, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Looks good. If anybody has the numbers, report them. SMCI doing well, not as well as NVIDIA. The only question here is, how about Broadcom? Do I take a little flyer?
NVIDIA revenue $26 billion, EPS $6.12. double beat.
Damn. Do I have the guts to play this? Or am I going to wuss out? Or am I going to wuss out and do Broadcom?
NVIDIA needs to stock split.
Yeah. Am I going to wuss out and do Broadcom? I mean, let's think through the game theory on this. Like, we're going to take a hit if we're wrong about Broadcom, but not as big of a hit. We already have SMCI exposure. Should we just make the bet on the actual stock? This is a tough one. How's everybody feeling? Who held NVIDIA through all of this? I'm sure a lot of you. I mean, if people
Mauricio,
are buying it, like, I don't think NVIDIA wants to attract, like, some people are like, oh, I want a cheap stock. I want to attract, like, you know, like small investors. But I don't think I think they want long-term value holders. So I don't think they want those kind of investors that would get attracted by a split. I haven't decided. I'm watching the stocks a little longer. Oh, NVIDIA's going up. Broadcom is not responding quite as positively. Interestingly. How about SMCI? It's a shame we can't get the question is if I own Broadcom and SMCI. No, because I don't want to own. No, I think that's the right way to think about it. But Broadcom is not doing that well yet. So I wonder if that'll insulate me from losses more too. All right, I'm doing it. I'm pulling the trigger on Broadcom, then I'm done. I'm done with my moves. And that's my official recommendation right now. Broadcom and SMCI to play this, but not NVIDIA. All right. Hims recently. Yeah, I've been following Hims. I'm not that sure about their business yet. I think it's nice. Net option sentiment just took a little bit of a dip. That would make me nervous. That would say people are exiting after really positive earnings. But my big question on Hims, profitability 38, we just said it. It's like right at that line of 120 profitability plus growth. Here's what makes me nervous about a company like that. I've seen it happen time and time again where I'm just not sure about their larger market. Like they can grow, they can do targeted ads, like a little word of mouth, but like I'm just not sure about the ultimate size of that business. And like when I'm not sure about the ultimate size of that business, the way people do projections, and I've built a lot of models myself, but you're just building off what you know both about the company and then on a macro basis, right? So you don't know if the market's hit its ceiling yet. And you could see signs of slowing down or whatever, but that's more what the company knows internally. And they're probably not going to guide to the bear case, just because for a growing company like that needs capital, like you got to take the risk. But yeah, I don't think the reward is there for the risk on him, especially seeing that option sentiment kind of falling after that great earnings.
Well, it appears right now, at least, that maybe we'll end this week green, huh?
Yeah. Wow, it looks like I got in at the wrong time to Broadcom. But it does look like it's a bit of a muddled signal from NVIDIA, which is basically what I wanted, which will give me a shot to get out of them as I'm listening to the call and watching the data. Part of me wants to keep going for that because I think it would be good, but I want to focus. I want to focus on listening to the call. So I think we'll end there. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We had a big stream, over 1,700 viewers. We'll see you back here Monday, normal time. Bye everyone. Happy NVIDIA earnings day.